Good morning. A 5-year-old girl came home from school and she was so excited. They had done Connect the Dots in school that day. She showed her mother some of the various Connect the Dots things she'd done, and the mother praised her and said to her, that's wonderful, I'm going to put it up on the refrigerator. And then Mom went about doing some chores, and she recognized that quietness. It was too quiet. And she noticed that her 5-year-old had wandered off with her 3-year-old. And so she went looking for them, and sure enough, there they were in the den with a magic marker. And they were connecting the dots on the family pet Dalmatian. Now, isn't it interesting how when we study spiritual truth, there seems to be this attitude that we somehow have to connect the dots. We have to do something the right way, or we need to have the magic formula, or know the magic words that we need to do to bring healing or prosperity or whatever into our life. The title of the talk this week is, take 2 prayers and call me in the morning. As I plot out my talk topics, I have about 10 days ahead of time. I basically make my final decision, and 10 days ago I was ill. My body, I started to feel that sore throat, and that particular day my body couldn't even speak. There was no voice. And so I thought, spiritual healing, that would be a good topic for 10 days from now. And that's how I came up with it. And it's interesting because it seems like spiritual healing is a touchy subject with some people, because there seems to be almost a healing lottery. It seems to work sometimes and not other times for some people. And so the fact that it isn't a consistently expressed divine idea gives people pause to talk about it. Now, as many of you know, Unity is now, this year is going to be 125 years old, and of course our congregation is 100. We're going to have our big birthday party in October. And soon afterwards, in the 1890s, the Silent Unity movement was started. And that was essentially a prayer group where they would pray for whatever the prayer requests were. They would start to answer mail, and that sort of thing, so that 24/7 prayer room has been going now for close to 125 years. I know we've got the phone number on the back of the bulletin, but it's real easy. It's 1-800-NOW-PRAY. And the interesting thing about Silent Unity is it's been recognized as an effective prayer ministry. It's, of course, they have volumes of testimonials from people whose lives were healed, either their physical health or prosperity, whatever. And actually, over the last 2 decades, there has been a lot of interest in trying to prove scientifically that prayer works, especially in a hospital or healing environment. Back in 2006, though, Silent Unity was called upon again, along with 2 other more fundamentalist prayer ministries, and they did another study to see the effectiveness of prayer in hospital patients. And they found that there was no difference. And some people were disappointed, but what comes up over and over again is how is the study laid out? Because there have been a couple other ones that were only Silent Unity, and they found that they were effective. The gold standard one was actually from 1999. William Harris was the lead author on the study. And it was a double-blind study. Essentially, at the hospital, cardiac care unit, heart surgery patients, they were divided into 2 groups, but they were told that they were in a special study group. They were assigned numbers. And then those numbers were given to Silent Unity. The people at Silent Unity would pray for the numbers of the people in the first group. So they did not know who specifically they were praying for, except for that number. And what they found was the people in group 1 indeed had better health outcomes. They healed more quickly, they had less complications and the like. So it is possible. But it also is interesting how sometimes we notice that health challenges can lead us to a greater spiritual awareness and be exactly the thing we need. It's been proven effective in a number of things. I know I see I've written down a note here. Also in 1999, there was a study of AIDS patients. They found that 1 hour of prayer 6 days a week for 10 weeks, the people who were prayed for actually were in better shape. And Carol and I, when we were going to Unity in Chicago back in the 1980s, there were 2 guys who came through, just would do a seminar and speakers. They had both been diagnosed with HIV and had gone on to AIDS, and yet they both were completely healed of AIDS, and they had their test results before and after, to show. The belief, well, let me back up a step here. Yeah, in 1992, Carla and I were at the Unity National Convention, and Dr. Larry Dawson, who does a lot of books and stuff on the effectiveness of prayer to healing. In fact, he says he doesn't feel that he's fully treated his patients until he has prayed with them for their health. He described and showed us the x-rays of a patient that had metastasized cancer and had basically just eaten away this man's hip. And then he showed us the x-rays from a few months later where not only was the cancer gone, but the hip bone, the hip socket was there again. And so this is all possible. There is a divine idea of health. And I've expressed a number of times that if we open our conscious mind to the divine mind, we can get these divine ideas that download and that we can express. The challenge is that there are a lot of people that seem to have a stronger belief in medical science. Actually, there's nothing wrong with believing in both. Both can be ineffective. Now, we've all had the experience of cutting our finger, perhaps, and you'll notice how your body immediately knows what to do to heal itself. All of these various things. I had to laugh. I was working on this talk on Friday night, and I was going over this story about cutting your finger and using that as an example. And I was doing laundry, and I slammed my finger in the dryer door and cut my finger. I was like, ooh, gotta watch how much I'm focusing on that story. But I know Frank Giudice, who's sitting out past away, but was one of the professors at the Unity Seminar, talked about how in some positive thought movements they say, that there is no reality in my cut finger. He says, no. You live in a relative world. You are applying absolute law. What you want to say is, okay, I've cut my finger, but it doesn't, then I pray for the healing of my finger, that it can heal more quickly. I know Joel Goldsmith, who is from the religious science movement, a lot of people in that movement believe in just absolute. There is no pain, there is no sickness, etc., etc. Joel Goldsmith would say, whenever someone would say to him, there is no pain, that he would kick the person in the shins, and then ask them if there is any pain in the world. And the idea is, though, that we allow for the spiritual substance to flow through us and the healing that needs to be done. The late Unity minister, Reverend Ernest Wilson, who served in one of the congregations in Kansas City near the end of his life, was contacted by a woman from California. And she said that, she needed to come see him. She knew that all she needed, that if she came to see him, she would be healed of her condition. Reverend Wilson explained how this woman came, and sure enough, they had a meeting, kind of like a spiritual counseling session, and she was healed. But Wilson noticed that he didn't do the healing. He said what it was that she believed with all of her heart, that all she needed to do was to come see him to be healed, and she was healed. So what do you believe, about your health? What do you believe about your possibilities? What do you believe about how speedily, you can be healed of a cold or a cut? In the Gospel of Matthew, 9th chapter, 35th verse, we're told that Jesus went through all the towns and villages, teaching in their synagogues, preaching the good news of the kingdom, and healing every sickness and disease. Now, one of the symbolism throughout, especially the four Gospels, is that Jesus represents that Christ consciousness, that spiritual awareness that we all have, because we don't need to be more spiritual. We're already spiritual beings having a human experience. And once we get in touch with that Christ consciousness, anything, every disease, every sickness can be healed. But your body, like we were talking about the cut finger a moment ago, essentially seems to know what to do regardless of what you do. Dr. Deepak Chopra, in his book Quantum Healing, goes over how quickly the body, recovers itself. He says, did you know that, your body is constantly regenerating itself? Your stomach lining is new every 4 days. Your skin is new every month. Your liver is new every 6 weeks. Your bones are new every 3 months. It says every year your complete body temple is 98% new. The rest just takes a little bit longer. So if you have cells regenerating, why would a new cell recreate as the old cell? Why isn't it regenerating as a healed cell and expelling whatever your physical ailment might be? How many people in the room own a TV? Of course, most of you do. Funny thing about these new TVs is, you can adjust them in all kinds of ways. You pull out the remote control, you can adjust the brightness, you can adjust colors, you can adjust this, you can adjust that. And when you get to the point where it's so messed up and you don't know what to do next, there is a function in the menu somewhere that says factory reset. You push on that, and it just takes all of your bright ideas, wipes them out, and brings them back to the way it was set when one left the factory. You have that ability with your body to be able to let go of all of the thoughts, all of the experience that you've had that have set into motion a belief system within you about your health, about your prosperity, about your relationships, about your occupation, whatever it is that you believe and will keep recreating because you believe in it. I know. Excuse me, I should have covered my microphone here. In Microsoft Word, have you ever had it where someone sends you a Microsoft Word document and you go to make some changes in it, and it's like, whoa, what this, it's formatted really weird, and every time you try to put something in new, it's doing stuff that you don't want it to do. Well, I found it under the change style menu. If you highlight everything and then go up there and it says clear all, sure enough, it wipes all of the old previous formatting off of the document, and you can start fresh. Now in our bookstore we've got some wonderful books on spiritual healing. In fact, 2 of them by Eric Butterworth. One is The Universe is Calling, the effectiveness of prayer. The Universe is Calling, and of course, Discover the Power Within You, that I know so many of you read last fall. But I'm going to ask Candy to put up a slide, because there's the very practical matter of how do I pray for help? What do I need to do? Well, as I mentioned before, there are these divine ideas that are out here floating around, and we just need to open our mind to the divine ideas that are right and appropriate for us to express. And to do that, first we need to believe that these divine ideas exist, and then we need to be willing towards these divine ideas to express them. So, after you believe that the divine idea exists and you're willing to express it, then you draw forth the spiritual substance of the cosmos through you. Now, what the heck does that mean? Each of us has the ability to draw from the spiritual realm and express in the physical realm. And you've done it on a regular basis. But the most tangible example I can think of is expressing love. Have you ever noticed that when you get to the point when you're ready to express love to someone, how you just feel this energy just flowing into you, and it flows from your heart, and you just kind of flow? Well, where does that love come from? I mean, you didn't manufacture it, you drew it from somewhere, right? It comes from that spiritual realm, and you express it in the physical realm. That is spiritual substance. It can be formed into anything in the physical world, whether it is maybe an occupation, relationships, prosperity, and then of course health. So you draw that spiritual substance through you and you focus on health, not on releasing the sickness, although not on coming from point A to point B. You just picture yourself and feel the emotional sense of having been healed already. So I am healed, whole, and healthy, like when Karen Drucker saw. Just in that present sense, just feel that flow come. Now, if you're praying for someone else, you feel that flow go through you. You see it going through them. You see them embracing that same divine idea that you're working with right now. So you picture yourself in wholeness, and then you open your mind to further guidance. Once you've done that first part, it's like, okay, God, show me the good in this. Show me the good. What's the lesson I have to learn here? Because that's the interesting hidden curriculum in so many illnesses or challenges that we have in our life. These challenges come into our life to once again show us maybe resistance we have in our life, belief systems, ideas. So where's the good in this situation? Now, my lovely wife and co-minister, Carla, about a year before we met, she was an independent woman, businesswoman in Chicago, and she went skiing in Colorado and blew out her knee. So she had knee surgery there in Denver and came back to Chicago on crutches. And she, now she could have done metaphysical malpractice on herself. It's like, oh, woe is me, what did I do, what did I believe that caused me to blow out my knee? But instead, it was more just the focus on healing, but what she recognized, where's the good in this? What she recognized was that she was very resistant to asking others for help. So the fact that she was on crutches and had this knee that was laid up for, it was like 6 weeks, 2 months, everywhere she went, she found that, she had to be willing to open herself up to asking people for help. And she got a kick out of it because, in Chicago, where we lived and where Carla lived before we met, she would take the bus downtown to work. So if you've ever ridden, like, say, on a Chicago bus or a New York bus, it's hard enough when you're standing to be able to balance yourself. Imagine yourself on crutches. So Carla would get on buses, and she goes, it's interesting, she said, well, people would be reading the newspaper, they'd see her get on the bus and just suddenly have a newspaper over their face so they didn't see her. But she said she got on one bus, and as she was moving to the back, she says, the bus driver didn't pull forward. The bus driver got up and said, okay, I'm not leaving until somebody gets up and gives this woman their seat. It was a very humbling experience, and that sort of thing can happen. It can make you look at, what you believe. Like Carla believed some of the challenging experiences she went through, that she had to be independent and was resistant to asking people for help. We noticed the same thing when Carla's mom passed away. In the last year of her life, when we be with her, she needed to heal some of the relationships that had gone, estranged in her life. Also, she had like Parkinson's syndrome, and we were talking with her at one point, in this assisted living center she was living in, and she showed us the list of 20 medications she was on. And she said, look, I know I'm going to die. Why am I on all these medications? And so we talked with her about it. We talked to the assisted living center and signed some waivers so that she could remove herself from all of these medications. And in the next couple of days, the Parkinson's shaking stopped. And she recognized she had a much more clarity to her mind. And I know Carla and I coached her like we coached a lot of people who are at the end of their life and wondering why they're still here, why they're still living. And what we do is we coach people. There are 2 things that need to happen. One, you need to teach the things you need to teach. And you need to learn the things you need to learn. So if you're finding there's a persistent person on your mind or something like that, call that person, and share it. And once all of that is done and reconciled, then you can pass to the other side. In the Gospel of Mark, 9th chapter, starting with the 14th verse, there's a narrative where Jesus had left with a couple of his disciples, and the other disciples were back helping people, and a man comes to the boy, and the description of the boy, pretty obvious to us in the 21st century, the boy was an epileptic. And the other apostles were praying over the boy, and the boy wasn't healing. And so Jesus comes back, and of course the father of the boy goes to Jesus, and well, basically what he says, if you read the chapters, your apostles ain't doing it, man. It's not working. The kid's not healed. So Jesus comes and sees the boy, and sure enough, he has another seizure. And Jesus asks him, how long has this been going on? And the father says, since he was a child. And so Jesus, just crouched over, prayed with the boy, and as it's described, the demon went out of the boy, and certainly he was healed. Well, afterwards, the apostles get together with him, and they say, what did we do wrong? And the fascinating thing about the passage is Jesus didn't say, well, here's what you did wrong, here's how to do it right. What he said was, this is the kind of illness that only comes out through persistent praying and fasting. Now, praying and fasting is a little bit lost in translation, but essentially what it means is affirmations and denials. Denials being releasing the old belief system, and praying being embracing the new divine idea. So it's not that you did anything wrong, you just sometimes need to pray a little bit more. I've had people come to me, they're having a challenge, and say, well, are you praying about this? Well, I did pray and it didn't work. So, well, yeah, but are you praying out of that? Because obviously there still needs to be a little bit more of a dissolving of the old belief system and an embracing of the new divine idea. There's an old castle in England. It was built in 1558. So it's been around 450 years, and the amazing thing about it is it's in pristine condition. And up in the main support beam, up near the ceiling, people don't notice it unless they look for it, there is an inscription. It says, "It is decreed in the name of Jesus Christ that this house shall never decay and shall always be preserved where Almighty God is worshipped day by day." A.D. 1558. So it's up to us every day just to be able to clean out that old negative thinking, the old belief systems that we recognize now from a more mature, and by that I mean physically mature, but also emotionally and spiritually mature state. That stuff doesn't work for me anymore. I need to release it. I need to embrace the divine ideas that do work. So, to review, how do you pray for help? 1, believe in the divine idea. Number 2, be willing to express it. Number 3, in prayer, draw forth the spiritual substance. Number 4, picture yourself in wholeness. And number 5, open your mind to further guidance. What is the good in this situation? It's always a good prayer to be asking at that time. Now, some of you are aware of the story of the Lady of Lourdes in France. A young girl, Bernadette, claimed that she had a vision of a woman who was talking to her. And the nuns in the town asked her to ask the vision who she was. And the woman said, "I am the Immaculate Conception," which is, especially in the Catholic tradition, that Mary was the Immaculate Conception so that she could be pure enough to give birth to Jesus. And this girl in 1858 was followed the instructions of a woman giving her the vision, who was talking to her. And she did all this weird stuff. And one of the things she did one day was she started digging in the earth and eating in the fruits, and she had mud all over her, and she was being mocked and all of that. But the next day, when people came past the spot where she was digging in the earth, there was a spring of water flowing up. And there's now a cathedral and essentially a pool, and upon a spring-fed pool where people go and they feel that if they just touch the water, they'll be healed. And they're here again, kind of like silent unity. There are countless stories of people that have been healed. But it's interesting that there are many more people that haven't been healed. I read a story back about 15 years ago of a Catholic chaplain who serves there. And he had served there for something like 30 years. And they asked, someone asked him, what's the difference? Why, do some people get healed, but most of them don't? He said, well, there's one common thread I've seen. He says, people who come here desperate for healing, that they have to be healed, most often walk away not healed. He says, but the people who are healed are the people that come here saying, I have learned the lesson from my ailment or my illness. I'm at peace with it. I could go on the rest of my life with it, but I'm open for change. I'm open for healing. He says, it's those people that are much more relaxed. Those are the ones that they take some of the water from the pool and they're healed. So, what is the good? We're going to close with a 3-minute video of a man who discovered just that.
The sound of a metal bat on a leather ball is so ubiquitous in America, most of us would never think twice about it. But a couple years ago, across the street from Arlington High School in Riverside, California, a man named Donnie Edison heard that sound from his back door. And it changed everything.
That pain kind of sound.
That like triggered something.
It gave me hope.
A few weeks earlier, at the age of 36, Donnie suffered a stroke that destroyed pretty much the whole right half of his brain. When he got home from the hospital, he could get around in a wheelchair, but found little reason to get off the couch. Until he heard that pain.
That saved my life.
Donnie told his wife, Natalia, "Take me to that batting practice."
I say, okay. So we load up the wheelchair and we come down.
And that was a one-time thing.
No.
Hardly.
That became everything. That became
Going to batting practice.
just going to bed and watch. Yeah.
Never mind that he didn't have a kid on the team. Never mind that it wasn't even his alma mater. He just liked baseball that much.
Just, I guess, the love of the game.
At first it was kind of weird. It was like, who's this guy?
But then we got used to him there.
So used to him, the coach eventually asked Donnie to be his assistant, which gave Donnie a purpose he'd never known before. See, prior to the stroke, Donnie worked as a bartender. He had no real direction. Coach changed that. He learned to walk again. He enrolled in college and is now studying to be a special ed teacher. He volunteers at Arlington, working with the special ed kids both in the classroom
You're doing great.
and on the baseball field, where he has introduced them to the joys of wiffle ball.
There's nothing like seeing these kids just run and smile and just having fun.
In fact, his life has changed so much, Donnie now says he's actually thankful he had that stroke.
Thankful.
Thankful that this happened. Because if this didn't happen, I would just be doing the same daily grind that I was, just going to work every day to pay my mortgage,
There's no sweeter sound than a found purpose. Or at least, not many. Steve Hartman, on the road, in Riverside, California.
From the Bible's book of Proverbs, 4th chapter, starting with the 20th verse. Pay attention to what I say. Listen closely to my words. Do not let them out of your focus. Keep them within your heart, for they are life to those who find them, and health to a person's entire body. Keep your mind vigilant, for from it flow the springs of life. And may you always be open to God's guidance